Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to deliver this keynote speech in today's conference. My name is Dr. Samuel Ogbeibu, and I'm a lecturer in international business and strategic management of Bradford University, UK. So today, I'll be talking on responsible innovation in organizations, unpacking the effects of leader trustworthiness and organizational culture on employee creativity. To give you a quick background on this topic or title of my keynote speech, we have several organizations today, manufacturing organizations precisely, getting involved in so many kinds of initiatives, implementing so many kinds of initiatives, and some of these initiatives actually have impact on the climate, and they do not exactly contribute positively towards uh, the global concerns for environmental sustainability. So actually, imp- uh, they rather contribute negatively towards environmental sustainability by amplifying the um, negative impacts of global warming, you know, in the environment. So I'll quickly look at what research overview we have. Right in front of us, we have the structure of today's keynote speech, which is the research overview, literature review, and then we'll move to methods employed and analysis, and also finally the conclusion. First of all, we'll go to research overview to have a quick or a closer capturing of what we'll be exploring today or discussing rather today. So this is an outline of what we're looking at today, and as you can see, this is actually this research. This is actually a research, one of my recent research works, publications that have been published in the Asia Pacific Journal of Management, an ABS three ranked journal. So we'll, we'll be looking at an outlook of what responsible innovation in organizations really mean and why it's important for organizations to engage in responsible innovation and certain other factors that have acted or that continue to act to either impede or reinforce the initiative to engage in responsible innovation. Some of those factors, as you soon find out, based on our study, are leader trustworthiness, organizational culture, and employee creativity. So we'll be exploring certain problems that have been identified, contextual related problems within the Malaysian context, to be precise, and what theoretical lenses or lens undergirds our study, um, and also insights from nine different postulations or hypotheses, and also methodology, what methodology and analysis um, were employed in this study, and also the results that we found, and some useful practical implications, such as the theoretical and policy implications. And also, I'll provide limitations and future directions. So, given the introduction I just gave before we jumped right into the slides, I highlighted the need for um, manufacturing organizations to engage in responsible innovation. One major one because of the global warming concerns. And there's been a call for manufacturing organizations across the globe to begin to really look into, take the need for environmental sustainability more seriously, and also respond to supporting uh, advancements of the Sustainable Development Goals. And a quick way, and not just quick, but a very vital strategy by which organizations can have this achieved is by supporting their workforce, and not just that, but specifically the creativity of the employees. And now this has been found as a very, very important or key strategy to helping the UNGC principles achievement, of the SDGs. So whilst organizations may want to embark on these initiatives or try to advance employee creativity or engender employee creativity rather, some other factors within the organization themselves, based on the context of the organization, based on the national context of the organization, and also supported from the literature, that we have looked at, my co-authors and I. We found also that there are several factors that can impede or impair organizations' effort or leaders' effort from actually engendering employee creativity. And some of these factors are organizational culture or the type of organizational culture that is being implemented by the organization, and also the trustworthiness perception of the employees regarding their leaders. So we noted also from the literature that a positive correlation exists between leader trustworthiness and employee creativity. However, little is known of the stability of such relationship under different organizational cultures. We also observe that the correlation between organizational culture, or that there is correlation between organizational culture and trustworthiness and the leader trustworthiness and employee creativity. However, we found that there have been several conflicting findings over the years, and this has not helped to, uh, this has not helped to actually provide a bridge that could help resolve such lacuna. As an aim to of this research, rather, as an aim of this research, we make a threefold contribution to addressing the overarching question of how leader trustworthiness changes the relationship or influences the relationship between distinct OCs and employee creativity. Bear in mind also that leader trustworthiness could be very, could have a positive influence on employee creativity under a certain kind of organizational culture. However, it might have a different outcome should it be employed under a different kind of organizational culture. Now, this is interesting because it not only has it been understudied, this area, but it's important to know how and what kind of, how leader trustworthiness influences employee creativity under different organizational cultures, and what under what kind of organizational culture would leader trustworthiness really thrive. In its goal to reinforce or advance or engender employee creativity. It's also important to better understand how they perform, especially given different cultures or organizational cultures. How does one perform, when compared against the other organizational culture? And what role does leader trustworthiness play in this situation? So we therefore make a threefold contribution. And first, we jointly investigate all four types of organizational cultures to shed further insights into how distinct OCs influence employee creativity in an emerging economic context. Secondly, we examined how each organizational culture and leader trustworthiness truly performs in relation to its respective importance in engendering employee creativity. And finally, we investigated how leader trustworthiness influences the relationships between the various OCs and employee creativity in the Malaysian context. Moving on from this, we would examine several, we'll examine literature and look at different hypotheses that has guided this research. First, we look at the problems that we identified based on the literature. This is just going to give us a summary of some of the problems identified. We noted that the Global Innovation Index report ranks Malaysia below several Asian countries such as Singapore, China, Hong Kong, and a few others with respect to innovation and creativity. This was as at the time of investigation of carrying out this particular study before it was published. Despite all the efforts, that the Malaysian government has placed to help to advance or increase creativity and innovation, particularly within its manufacturing industry. We also noted that Malaysia presents a multicultural society, and this is such that OC organizational culture reflects distinct values. Each organizational culture reflects distinct values. There are different forms of organizational cultures that exist within Malaysia manufacturing companies or in the Malaysian manufacturing industry. And these different values can have different and unpredictable influences on employee creativity. Two major issues noted that hinders or continues to hinder employee creativity growth in the Malaysian manufacturing industry were based on the literature are are a hierarchical organizational culture and leader trustworthiness concerns. What are these concerns of leader trustworthiness? Before I continue, the hierarchical organizational culture mirrors the kind of culture that exhibits stringent rules, strict practices, a less flexible or rigid system of managing employees. Basically, rules are rules. You don't break them. And there is, you know, the opportunity to actually present your creative idea or even allow yourself to think creatively to generate a creative idea and share that creative idea and have it implemented is a bit uh, uh, stiffened, or stifled and impaired due to the value systems demonstrated under the hierarchical organizational culture. And then and leader trustworthiness, concerns. Such leader trustworthiness concerns could, from the literature, we noticed that in Malaysia there's been widespread scandals of some or several leaders of very reputable organizations. And this questionable leader uh, trustworthiness uh, behaviors, have led to such widespread scandals of their organization. And also, a strong hierarchical OC can breed distrust and negatively affect perceptions of trustworthiness between employees and their leaders. We therefore drew on the componential theory of individual creativity by Amabile 1997 to drive further analysis and also undergirded uh, framework, a conceptual framework uh, by the competing values framework assumptions. The competing values framework was developed by Kemen and Quinn in their work published in 1999 and also in 2004. You know, um, and 2006, and even 2011. So, for the combination theory of individual creativity, Mabile in 1997 advocated three different components of an employee's creativity, which are expertise, creativity skills, and task motivation. So basically, these three components are what collectively exists to engender an employee's creativity or an individual's creativity. The expertise is important, the creativity skills, and also the task motivation. What motivates the employee to really carry out a particular task? The kind of creativity skills, the pattern, the style by which the employee exhibits creativity in the first place. And the expertise, the particular unique ability of the employee to exhibit a domain relevant knowledge. And if you look at the computing values framework, adhocracy organizational culture depicts the kind of culture where there is high level flexibility and autonomy to do a particular task, and risks are not met with punishments, but are actually encouraged and supported by respective organizations. Then the clan OC or clan organizational culture reflects the kind of culture whereby the employees have have work in groups. Basically they work in groups, and these groups, there is loyalty, pronounced loyalty, high level loyalty, whereby the group members are very loyal to their group leader or leaders, and they basically yield to what is expected of them by the group. So you have several groups, known as or identified as clans within an organization. And you have something like that in Malaysia. You have the market organizational culture whereby the leaders are more focused on productivity and output and not so focused on whether the employee exhibits that much creativity or not. But you need to get a job done. You got set targets to meet. You got certain sales targets to meet. You need to pull out some sales and hit the scores or go above it. You know, deliver basically. And hierarchy OC already explained that. So we came up with several hypotheses, and we tried to investigate the positive relationships between advocacy, clan OC, market and hierarchy OCs, and employee creativity. We also investigated how the relationship between leader trustworthiness and employee creativity, and we hypothesized a positive relationship. We also hypothesized that leader trustworthiness would increase the positive influence of advocacy OC on employee creativity. And we hypothesized that the same thing would happen for the relationship between clan and market OC on employee creativity. However, we argue that and hypothesized that leader trustworthiness would dampen the positive influence that the OC, that's supposed to be the hierarchical organizational culture, has on employee creativity. So, what methods and forms of analysis did we employ to further investigate study or the problems we found based on the literature? First of all, we look at the sample size and data collection. So the data sample, we for data sample we our population sample were a team of R&D employees, or several teams of R&D employees rather, and their subordinates, several teams of R&D employees that consist of team leaders and subordinates. Excuse me. And we also explored, or rather investigated, um, based on the literature to find out which kind of departments or what departments would be most relevant to sample. And that was the R&D, research and development departments. And we did that across 54 manufacturing organizations. Some manufacturing organizations, or sample manufacturing organizations rather, were located in Klang Valley and Penang of Malaysia. We employed the Creation-Morgan 1970 determinants of sample size to obtain a stratified proportion sampling of employees. 600 copies of the questionnaire was distributed. 222 completed copies were returned and found useful, reflecting a 37% response rate. For data collection, we recruited 6 research assistants and established contacts with HR managers of each manufacturing organization. And 50 employees partook of the pilot survey phase. The questionnaires on employee creativity and leader trustworthiness were handed out 18 weeks after distributing those of the OC quadrants. To address possible concerns of common method bias, we ensured that participants were assured of their anonymity, and also we initiated a complete collinearity evaluation of the variance inflation factor. And we found, and our results show that the highest VIF value in our study was 1.055, and this thus indicated that CAMB was not much of an issue. With respect to the operationalization of our constructs, the measures employed for leader trustworthiness were 6 adapted items, and 24 items were adapted for OC quadrants, 7 items were adapted to test or to analyze creativity skills, and also 5 items were adapted for task motivation and 4 items for expertise. With respect to our analysis, we used the variant-based structural equation modeling, which is a useful and recommended technique, especially noting a kind of theoretical framework which is reflective and formative in nature. So a two-stage approach was employed to examine the structural model. We found several insightful and meaningful results. One of which was that Clan OC in Malaysia exhibits the strongest medium association with employee creativity, and this is followed by advocacy and market organizational cultures that have small effects. We also found the hierarchy of organizational culture exerts a positive influence. However, it's got no meaningful effects, unfortunately. Leader trustworthiness. Oh, by the way, the hierarchy also exerts a positive influence on employee creativity with no meaningful effect, actually contradicts the debate in the literature. There's been debate that it exerts a, a negative effect, especially in the Malaysian context, given that based on the literature, um, even the national culture, as identified in the literature of, the national culture of Malaysia is highly hierarchical based on the power distance that has been pioneered, the power distance research has been pioneered by Hofstede's work on national culture. So we found that hierarchical also exerts a positive influence on employee creativity. However, it's got no meaningful effect. I guess this is also why there's been, the Malaysian government has been struggling a bit to engender employee creativity, given its uh, notable hierarchical or power distance related system of disseminating cultural values. We also found that leader trustworthiness has negative but small relationship. So that's a small negative relationship with uh, employee creativity. We found also that leader trustworthiness positively moderates the relationship between the market OC and employee creativity. And also, it does not moderate the relationship between advocacy OC and employee creativity. It also has no significant moderating effect or influence on the relationship between clan OC and employee creativity. However, leader trustworthiness positively moderates the relationship between the hierarchic OC and employee creativity. So this can sort of give the policymakers a bit of comfort, knowing that when they become more trustworthy, the leaders precisely of manufacturing organizations, when they become more trustworthy, chances are that though they exert a hierarchical organizational culture system within the organization, it could help to amplify employee creativity because their employees would see them to be trustworthy enough to want to share their creative ideas with them. And also that can help to engender their creativity, the employee creativity. We also found that all the organizational culture quadrants, including leader trustworthiness, perform averagely. However, they differ in their respective importance. And this is also important to note because clan OC exhibits the strongest importance. So, in conclusion, we provided theoretical implications and managerial implications and limitations and future directions of our study. So, for theoretical implications, we extend contemporary insights by investigating the multi quadrant nature of OC and how each OC quadrant influences employee creativity. We also provide information on all OC quadrants and leader trustworthiness and how they perform modestly in their respective contributions to stimulating employee creativity. And we also demonstrate that while the CTIC has championed the view that OC either promote or inhibit employee creativity, we extend this insight by providing evidence of which OC quadrant is the most important. We challenge the CTIC's assumption that the hierarchy OC weakens employee creativity by demonstrating that the hierarchy OC is positively associated with employee creativity. We also found that leader trustworthiness actually strengthens the positive relationship between hierarchy and market OCs and, and employee creativity, respectively. We demonstrate how leader trustworthiness can be negatively associated with employee creativity. And finally, we exemplify that the clan OC exhibits the strongest direct potential to engender employee creativity, while the hierarchy OC has the weakest within the Malaysian manufacturing industry context. We provide several key takeaways, one of which is the clan OC is a recommended OC for leaders and policymakers interested in further boosting employee creativity. Policies could be instituted to further encourage the values found in the Hadocracy OC, given its long-standing ability to engender employee creativity. The clan also exhibits the greater need for resources, so you commit more resources to the clan OC because it shows more room for improvement and makes the most important contribution towards um, fostering employee creativity. Manufacturing organization leaders that currently operate the market and hierarchy OCs should take note of their respective small effects. So this means they may not do that much, they may not produce that much output with respect to advancing uh, employee creativity, given their small effects. However, small effects can actually, um, in some ways, yield meaningful results. We also provide some comfort to leaders in that any increase in leader trustworthiness significantly amplifies the influence of the market and hierarchy OCs on employee creativity. We recommend also that leaders, top management leaders, should eschew any unethical behaviors in order to avoid negative direct influence of leader untrustworthiness on employee creativity. Finally, we have some limitations. Our study is not without a few limitations. Our study is based on a cross-sectional research design. Therefore, it will be important to investigate the conceptual underpinnings of OCs by taking a longitudinal approach and through different theoretical lenses. This would help to provide more useful information and increase the concepts that have been investigated. We also focus on the Malaysian manufacturing industry context. We would recommend future investigations conduct um, their research within various national contexts. Our study was grounded on an individual level, forgive the typographical error here. Our study also was grounded on an individual level investigation, which might have limited the degree of information obtained. So future research could examine the OC underpinnings in relation to the organizational creativity perspective. Finally, our study investigates core issues pertinent to organizational behavior and environmental sustainability within the human resource management context. Thank you for listening. I'll take questions now.